Namaste.
Salam sejahtera.
Sawadika.
Sawadika.
My name is Vinod J. Nair, and with me is Lau Sin Hien. We are from Malaysia. Our topic today is Will It Work? Let's try it out on our students. I must say, at the time, it sounded like a swell topic title. After we submitted it and we read it again, we started having doubts, but oh well. The actual title would have been Novel Exercises in Typographic Education and Strategic Use of Reflective Practice and Collaborative Platforms to Enhance Education. That was not great either. So, anyways, the title, Will It Work? Let's try it out on our students, came about because we were pressed for time. And so both of us deployed the exercises on our students without trying it out ourselves first, which was not the usual practice, just to let you know. Now, before we begin, a little bit about ourselves. I am a senior lecturer at Talis University, Malaysia. My area of interest revolves around establishing a standardized typeface for vehicle license plates in Malaysia, and studying the use of heraldry in Malaysia, specifically public school emblems, where I hope to research, rethink, revise the school emblems in accordance to proper heraldic practices.
And I'm Shin, a graphic and type designer. In addition to my type design and typography research projects, I have been teaching at Malaysia Institute of Art since 2017. This year I started to teach additionally in another two institutions, the One Academy and also Taylor University, where I co-instructing with Vinod. So with our introduction out of the way, let us begin with our topic today. Our presentation today revolve around our teaching approaches in type design and the strategies used to enhance learning. We will begin with an introduction, then our two approaches in teaching type design, followed by our strategies to enhance learning, and finally conclude our presentation.
So, typography as a taught discipline in Malaysia has been included in part of the design curriculums in design courses. The oldest institutes in Malaysia date back to 1967. Based on published materials, I can safely say that typography was a feature in the curriculums by the early 1980s. Type design as an exercise in typography is fairly recent inclusion. I only became interested myself in type design in 2003. I designed my first typeface in 2004. I was mostly self-taught, and so I picked up a lot of bad habits. There was no community then that I could rely on or get resources on as well. In 2010, I had the opportunity to introduce type design as an exercise in typography at Talis University. Back then, I was probably the first to introduce such an exercise. This was because there wasn't anybody, as far as I know, in the teaching fraternity that dabbled in type design at that point in time. Today in Malaysia, we have a growing community of type designers. Even though it is still small, it is growing. Sin, I can proudly say, is one of these individuals. Over to you.
Over the last decades, there have been noticeable, albeit still limited, increase in awareness and interest in type design education in Malaysia. Today, in certain educational institutions, type design is a part of the design or typographic curriculum. Consequently, we have witnessed a gradual but steady rise in number of aspiring type designers. The presence of Huruf, a type collective dedicated to promoting discussion on typography, has played a significant role in increasing awareness and fostering the growth. So as an educator and practitioner in the discipline of type design and typography, we feel it prudent to share our experiences in the challenging quest of type design in design education. Both myself and Vinod are engaged in teaching and learning, myself as a part-timer, and Vinod is a full-timer. So in this presentation, we will introduce what we believe are two distinct and potentially novel approaches in teaching type design, and two strategies used to enhance our teaching in typography. My partner, Vinod, will begin with one of his approaches first.
In August 2018, I was confronted with the challenge of developing an exercise that would not exceed 2 weeks for typography module. My students were year 1 students and did not have much experience. However, I knew I wanted to introduce something related to type design. being an avid movie fan, I have always noticed the use of novel typefaces designed specifically for movie titles, but also game titles and interface. I suppose in an age of increased content creation, differencing and customizing have become critical for titles to stand out. The approach, more often than not, is to design titles that represent or reflect the movie, game, or TV series. And so I wondered if I could get students to do this. I tried looking through my typographic books and later online resources to find possible exercises that would cater to this type of challenge, but I found none. So this meant I had to design the task from scratch. In thinking about the challenge, I remembered an exercise I used to prescribe when teaching a brand identity module. Like me, many of my students face trouble coming up with unique color palettes. To overcome this handicap, I used to extract colors from images I found attractive. Today, Adobe Color has a site that does this. So it got me thinking, if I can extract colors from an image, can I extract type from it too? The answer is yes, because there are cases where professional designers have done so. The sample on the right is by the agency Bond, which is based in Estonia. I beg your pardon, sorry, did I go to the wrong one? Oh,
Yeah,
I went
to the right. So yeah.
Right, okay. And essentially, they created this typeface that was based on the Patri Sea Fortress, and in doing so, they were able to develop a typeface around this. And in any case, after much thought, I designed a task with 6 steps to be completed in 2 weeks. So let me take you through these steps. In the first step, I advised my students to find an image that has strong, consistent character, preferably subject matter that is similar or repetitive in nature. The image you see here was selected by one of my former students, Rausha Aminat from the Maldives. The focus here is on the fence and not the car. The fence is fairly consistent in form except for the hole in the fence, which allows for some very interesting variation. In step 2, the student outlines or deconstructs the image to observe the constituent shapes, forms of the object in the image because that's being studied, like the nature of the lines or textures and overall form. In step 3, after faithfully deconstructing or outlining the image, the student would proceed to identify letter forms within the outlined areas. The shapes may not look exactly like the desired letters, but as long as it resembles the basic shape, it's acceptable. In step 4, the letter forms are then extracted from the deconstructed image and placed on a baseline to be studied as a whole and in comparison to each other. Core characteristics are identified and a potential direction is determined. In step 5, a reference typeface that suits the type of art direction being pursued is identified. The reference here serves as a guide for the student when dealing with complexities of letter forms. In step 6, the design evolves through an iterative process, an iterative and recursive process with the original extraction on one side of a continuum and the reference typeface at the other end. The objective here is to refine the extracted letter forms to a point where it is consistent, uniform, and stylistically similar with the other extracted letter forms. All this while retaining the inherent quality and core characteristic of the original object, subject, in the selected image, in this case, the fence. Here, you can see the final step of the refinement of each letter form for comparison to its original extraction above and the reference below. But the journey here is not as straightforward. The process of refinement is a tedious one and requires the student to go through several iterations before arriving to the final outcome. In 2018, I named this exercise Finding Type, and since then, many students have attempted it with varying degrees of success. The following are just a few samples. just checking whether it was appearing. Anyways, so these may not necessarily make practical typefaces. The main purpose was to create customized letter forms that represented or reflected the subject matter of the image. And in doing so, mimicking what is done in movie titles. So if the movie or documentary was about cabbages, then this process could help a novice designer achieve the desired result. Invariably, this also expanded the possible sources of inspiration for typefaces, typeface designs later on. In the beginning of this year, I decided that it would be nice to make mock movie posters with the letter forms using the images that displayed subject matters that inspired the letter form. So these are some of the results, and this is done in the last day. Anyways, moving on. Which is on. Okay, so these same students many weeks later down the line, which would utilize these skill sets and eventually develop a full set of typefaces. Although this has got nothing to do with the finding type exercise, but I just wanted to show it to you so that it gives you some context into the whole process eventually. So these are just typefaces that were designed by students towards the end, but not related to the exercise. With that, I come to the end of my approach. I'm now going to hand it over to Sinyin to present her second approach of designing type, this time with students who are more senior and time limits that are longer.
Yeah. So while the students are exposed to the subject of typography for a number of semesters, they only start to dabble into type design in my class. Due to time constraints in the curriculum, I have to strategize my lesson plan to provide an entry-level assignment. So my approach is to use grid and modularity. Modularity in type design has its inception from the artist and educator Joseph Albers. So combination font was designed as a modular typeface with just 4 basic shapes. A letter could be assembled in a variety of ways. It was published first in 1926, followed by New Constructible Block Script by Ian Chichot in 1930, where it further demonstrates quick and easy method for constructing letters. The typeface was described as for inscriptions, for all kinds, signs, drawings, exhibition, shop, decoration, photo montage, and etc. Can be made by everyone, no previous experience necessary. So reading into these ideas, I was convinced that I could give it a try with my students. The 7 weeks type constructing course was broken down into several steps, devised using method of geometric construction and modular structures. It was an exploratory attempt to create a display typeface with a focus on quick outcomes rather than refined letter forms. So prior to the process of type constructing on the grid, a Western calligraphy, namely the foundational hand, are introduced to the students. This is to equip them with some general knowledge of Latin letter form, basic proportion, stroke modulation, and the writing tool, which is the broad edge pen. So in the exercise of calligraphy, we are to see writing as a system of movement. Consistency was achieved by repetitive strokes. And whereas in grid and modularity, type is constructed under a system of components by repetitive modules. To design using modular approach is a way to reducing the complexity of visual work into simplified components. Students are encouraged to create various letter forms based on the 2 grid systems. One is the square grid with diagonal lines. The other one is a square grid with circular lines. And this is to demonstrate, what's showing here is a demonstration to introduce students that the design possibilities are limitless. The process begins by exploring the design possibilities with sketches of the core letters, hand glove, in both upper and lower case. And then students could either follow the grid rigidly or view it as a guide, freeing themselves from the constraint of a predetermined grid system. As one example here, one of my former students, Cheryl, she discovered a very interesting way to explore the letter form by using the grid diagonally. Besides creating sketches from the provided grid lines, an online open source platform, the Fonstruct, was also introduced to the students. Sometimes students find creative way to use the design tool. So instead of constructing single letter in the individual slot, this student Ken Ho, he decided to construct all sketches at once. So which we believe it is a quicker way to look into multiple possible design. So the next step is to find the ideal form for each letter by creating multiple variations and later testing out by forming words. Throughout the process of refinement, often it takes the longest time. So where we look into the consistency of letter height, the width, the contrast, and also deliberating into whether the details should be retained or removed. So this is when the student and I start crying. We wonder why we get ourselves into this. So once a better solution has been found, we finally stop crying. Yeah. One of my former students, Jefferson, who are a very detail-oriented student, after constructing the letter shape, he further looked into design details like introducing the rounded corner and also the ink traps. And after much sweat and tears, student finally completing that character set. So yep, the student who tried the grid diagonally share does manage to complete the basic character set, which is the upper and lower case and also the numerous. So students could either construct their type in Fonstruct or digitize the sketches, which is to vectorize it with the Adobe Illustrator, which they already been familiarized with. I begin to introduce an open source font production tool, the FontForge, this year. And here, the workspace from one of my former students, Wei Shang. And this is his character set, the upper and lower case. So the coursework aims to give graphic design students an experience of creating a custom type and later applying the typeface for effective communication through several optional applications, which included basic type specimen, and some hardworking students will put extra effort on exploring paper structure. And of course, poster art. And also typographic merchandise. The application vary from each individual of students based on their strength and also their interests. So from the works that have been produced by my students between 2019 and 2022, I have observed a very diverse outcomes. So first and foremost, the geometrical shapes is the most common outcome, followed by the ornamental, where we could observe decorative details from the letter form, and also the gestural letter forms which resemble the shapes rendered using writing tools, and finally the experimental one, which has very expressive features. Okay, we will now segue into the second phase of our presentation, where we will talk about the strategies used to enhance learning.
So, in this second part of our presentation, we talk about the strategies used to enhance our teaching and learning. The first strategy revolves around reflective practice. It is all well and good to teach students in typography a skill or impart knowledge. For the learning to leave an indelible mark, the teaching needs to shift from practice to reflective practice, where the learner thinks about his or her learning. Reflective practice is an exercise prescribed by educators to develop metacognition. Metacognition, simply put, is thinking about thinking. Reflective practice allows teachers insight into students' state of mind, their struggles, their fears, inspirations. It also reveals strengths and weaknesses in curriculum pedagogy that we design. The medium used to prompt reflective practice in my typography module is the blog. Old but gold. We like to call it an e-portfolio. It functions like an academic journal that documents students' journey in the module, their thought processes, their failures, successes. Each task in the module is documented separately in an individual post. Each post is broken down into 5 sections: lectures, instructions, feedback, reflection, and further reading. At the end of the semester, the student compiles all their final output from each of the tasks into one post, which is called a final compilation and reflection. The compilation and reflection post provides a quick overview, the main and final reflection of, for the entire semester is written in this particular post. Students are asked to basically reflect on 3 key areas: their experience, their observations, and their findings. Jesus. Okay, 5-minute man came out. Just give us 6 minutes if I can negotiate. Okay, at this stage, I'm going to, in the interest of time, I'm not going to take you through the website, but okay, so between 2021 and 2022, the colleague and good friend of mine, Dr. Jinchi, and I decided to analyze these reflections. We looked at 50+ reflections, and from these, we began to broadly categorize them. In doing so, we began to observe emerging themes in reflections studied. The data emerging from our analysis and reflections seem to confirm that what we wanted happening was indeed happening, which is reflective practice. We wanted the e-portfolios to function like a mirror. We wanted it to force introspection. We wanted the students to think about their work, their conduct, their strengths and weaknesses, and we wanted them to change as a result. Through the analysis and of the reflection, the evidence suggested that this was the case and this was happening. The key themes of realization and transformation were indications of this, along with themes of motivation and development. All of them, in varying degrees, indicated reflective practice and, as a result, changing the student. So in 2022, we presented the study in the International University Conference on E-Learning, and we, Dr. Jin and I, were awarded the silver medal for our strategy. Our paper was then selected to be published in the following proceedings. This provided much validation to the work that I started in 2013, culminating in this award in 2022. Today, at the Design School in Taylor's University, e-portfolios are maintained by every student throughout the journey in this program. But the real achievement in this is that when we get such responses from students who have left our program expressing their gratitude. Allow me to end my presentation by reading this excerpt. I forgot to mention how thankful I am for you for pushing us to document our work on Blogspot and in a super organized format. I've always complained about the painstaking process of writing a blog post and reflection, but now I understand why you made us do it, and it's all worth it. Without the blog, I would not be close to where I am now. So with that, I end my part of the presentation. I hand it over to my much accomplished partner and the next generation of teacher practitioners, my Sinyan, to end with her approach in collaborative platforms.
All right, so the pandemic has ushered us in the new learning environment, the virtual classroom. So this transformative environment has facilitated the integration of online collaborative web tools to guide and instruct students in their work progress, providing a more open and collective learning opportunity. So during our online classes, we came across Figma, an online collaborative web tool. The practice of open discussion enables students to witness each other's design approaches, whether it was a success or failure. So they learn by observing how their peers progress in the classroom. So in an era where self-directed learning is not only possible, but also readily accessible, schools play a vital role in facilitating collaborative learning among students. They serve as a hub where students can harness the power of collective intelligence, sharing their research findings and work progress openly. I believe that great design thrives not on the exchange of ideas and perspectives, and the two learner never operates in isolation. Instead, they engage with the wealth of knowledge and insight they can derive from their peers, fostering a community of shared learning and growth. So the incorporation of mind mapping techniques plays a pivotal role in our group research efforts, enabling students to collectively structure, organize their teams, research into coherent and logical frameworks. So earlier this year, we were fortunate to have 3 students from Indonesia, providing our classroom with the valuable opportunity to explore both our cultural similarities and also the differences. Here are a glimpse of the research findings where students study on the traditional craft and practice. Our study of art and design history has predominantly focused on the Western perspective. However, when it comes to the design of poster art, I have tried to inspire students to delve into our local context and generate modern interpretation for current visual communication methods. So the insight from the group learning will subsequently apply to individual projects involving the transformation of traditional craft-inspired motifs to yet letterform designs. Okay, so I would like to end my presentation with one example of student work. Summer means together in both Bahasa Malay and Indonesia. Hence, Summer Art Show was the title proposed by student Wen Yi. So the key visual she created was meant to convey the concept of interconnection and the expansion of cultural exchange. All right. I hope we didn't put you into sleep. I would like to thank the organizers and the amazing team, Cadson Demak, for inviting us as speakers to this wonderful conference. We have learned so much from the many speakers, many of you. I hope that we can take this learning and incorporate some of our practice in both teaching and learning. So extra information here. Vinod is my former lecturer. We met 19 years ago at Malaysian Institute of Art, where I studied graphic design, and he had hand igniting my interest in typography and type design. I believe he has set a very great role model, and I wish I would do the same.
Well, thank you for that. I hope in a small way our presentation also contributed towards a small body of knowledge contained within this conference. From our hearts, our heads, and our hands, we thank you. Thank you.